How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to have a little blast on Grainwoods River. I'm going to take this out, the Pacific P512 PF, and yeah, just give it a little test. I picked a mission in the end called Don't Push Your Luck. I wanted a fairly short mission because I'm going to try a bit of off-roading and that, but I know that this thing hasn't got all-wheel drive or anything. Yeah, I've got to go and deliver large pipes to where I just showed you there, and originally I was going to grab them that Cargo Creation Zone number 2 in Black Badger Lake. I built some large pipes, but there is actually, if like, I'm using my little cut through to go across the water and everything, kind of to head back to the warehouse where the Paystar is, and there's some large pipes just sat on the rocks there that yeah, I'm going to try and grab with this. Sort of has a little go at tidying the map up while I'm doing it, rather than just yeah, building more pipes of my own, even though I'm more than happy to do that, and I'll just leave everything scattered around. Yeah, so like I said, I'm going to use this truck, and as I'm going to grab the large pipe instead of just get it from where I've built them at the railway station in Black Badger Lake, yeah, I'm going to take this large crane so I can actually reach it. And fortunately, I was considering getting that trailer, but then thankfully the loaf saved me again without me even realising. I got the 4-slot trailer because I wanted to bring a loaf with me. Right now, for some reason, I had in my head that the large pipes were only 2-slot cargo. I think I have like the medium pipes in my head basically. So yeah, I needed the 4-slot trailer anyway. And like I said, I only brought the 4-slot because I thought, oh, I'll stick the loaf at the front, and then yeah, I'll drop the large pipes behind it. But it didn't quite work out that way in the end. But again, we're bringing a goddamn horse of a vehicle because he's a beast. And yeah, it's a spare winch just in case if I roll it or anything like that, or maybe even if I get stuck because I've not got all-wheel drive. The horn, it's not too bad on this thing. And yeah, also spare fuel, because this thing is a bit of a drinker as well. Well, it's probably more the fact it's only got a 200 litre fuel tank, which is yeah, pretty small. I mean, the Dolphin as well, that's got a 200 litre fuel tank, which is pretty small for how much it drinks. This probably drinks about a similar rate of fuel, but obviously at least with the Dolphin, it's got all-wheel drive, diffs are always on all the time, so it can gain a lot of distance with a 200 litre fuel tank. That telegraph pole there, by the way, it's all floating up in the air. Yeah, so it kind of actually makes good use of that fuel. This thing, obviously, yeah, small fuel tank, and it's not all-wheel drive, and it's only got like the rear tyres powering it. So there's situations where when you're in the boggy stuff and you're going pretty slow, you've kind of got to drop it down either to auto or really preferably low range, so you can actually put the diffs on, and then you're going very slow, and obviously you're burning quite a bit of fuel for the distance you're actually covering. But overall, I sort of, again, I think this is probably my second favourite truck, but I do quite like it. The Paystar seems to be the most handy at the minute, and I like the different add-on options and all the rest of it. Something does feel off with it as far as the power goes, but the high range kind of, yeah, the high gear helps that a lot. With this truck, I mean, the things I do like about it, it's kind of like a little bit, say, like the Navistar, but just a much bigger version. It's like a pretty decent sized truck. Obviously the yeah, having no all-wheel drive holds you back. It's only got one set of tyres. You can't get chained on it, which I'm not too fussed about, because at least these two new maps haven't got snow or anything on, so you're not going to have icy roads or anything like that. Yeah, as long as these tyres, they seem fairly decent, and it's a little bit like the P16. They might have a couple of tyre choices now, I can't remember, but either way, like, there's some sort of unique P16 tyres in the game. The same with the Cat 770G as well. And yeah, they tend to be the Tatran as well. That's another one with unique tyres that have got like almost boosted grip stats compared to all the average sort of normal tyres that you can get across a lot of different vehicles. So that in and of itself I don't mind. And the things I like about this, it feels sort of very nicely weighted, so it feels like it behaves quite realistically. So in that sense, it's quite nice to drive. The way it puts the power in and that feels pretty decent. Again, if you're on certain rough terrain, obviously it's not really going to matter, you're just going to wheel spin. So yeah, it's one of those really. I suppose almost it's a little bit like a hard mode version of a truck where, yeah, it's definitely held back. It's never going to be the best truck in the game because it's just not got all-wheel drive, so it's going to struggle in certain places. But because it has got the right amount of weight to it, probably unique tyres with a slightly better grip and everything, overall, yeah, it still handles itself pretty well, and it feels quite nice to drive. It's just one of those where you have to be paying a bit more attention to, like, not catch yourself on rocks and all sorts of stuff. And obviously, yeah, sections like that, that's where just the front wheels clawing away as well would be quite nice. And I think overall in this game, just my gut feeling, I've been driving a few things, the Dolphin just feels a little bit weaker than normal, and I was driving the Taiga earlier as well. The reason I did a little bit of a shorter mission today is I've spent a lot of my time earlier driving around Black Badger Lake, getting every mission on there, just at least accepting it, so I can just flick through them and choose them as and when I want, and I can read what I need to do with them all. In the end, yeah, I then went on to this one, Greenwoods River, and went and got all the upgrades, which were basically, I think I got raised suspension for the bore, and then there was a couple of fine-tuned gearboxes, which are like now for the Scouts, and everything that takes the advanced special gearbox. I think there I got my crane leg stuck on one of the rocks. Yeah, so I spent quite a bit of time doing that. The Taiga, that I rolled it about 3 times. That seemed a bit worse than I remember for rolling. I did have the chained on rather than the custom muds. Just I've got a custom mud Taiga somewhere, but I just grabbed my other Taiga. Yeah, and even the Dolphin felt a little bit. It felt a bit more like a powerhouse thing with the engine it had. Yeah, and I'm not sure if since I've added this fine-tuned gearbox, if they've kind of sabotaged the auto gears a little bit, or maybe even got a little bit more strict on like the rev caps and everything, again to try and encourage the use of, or at least, yeah, just make the fine-tune a more appealing choice really, which, I don't know, it's one of them really. If it was like that originally from the game, it's one thing, but once you're already used to the certain like characteristics, the background characteristics of the game, kind of the status quo, it's yeah, when they tweak stuff like that behind the scenes, it's for the mostly, I'd say it probably doesn't go well, because then everything just has a slightly different feel to what you're used to. But I've got a feeling that's what they did, because like I said, a few months ago they definitely changed something with the auto where it keeps trying to jump into second gear as you're going up a hill, and then the game automatically, like, it hasn't got enough power and auto jumps back to first. And again, I think they did that to make, because for the first few months in this game, auto was just a beast really. It kind of, for the most part, some trucks it's handy because you can turn the diffs on if you go into the low ranges, but yeah, just stuff like the Dolphin and the Taiga, they'd just sit really solidly in first gear and absolutely motor up hills, and it just, you never needed like the high-low or anything like that, whereas then they seem to purposely sabotage it a little bit to kind of make the low ranges more relevant. And yeah, I've got a feeling, unless they've accidentally kind of broke something whilst they've been incorporating the fine-tune into the game. So yeah, we'll see. And I might end up putting the fine-tune gearbox in this truck and maybe one or two others just to see how it goes. It certainly does seem like they're more relaxed on the rev caps in the low ranges, which is nice. That's certainly something that'll interest me. And yeah, overall, like I said, I still prefer the high-range gearbox, but I think the fine-tune might be a better option than the off-road now. You see there as well, I actually just ran out of power there, and again that's a little bit odd because I believe I was in the low range already, and yeah, low range diffs on, and it just wasn't giving me any power. I let off the accelerator and floored it again, and then it sort of fired up and started going. But I've noticed that happening a few times, which never really used to happen before. So yeah, anyway, I cut across my little path, which yeah, I quite like that option. I'm going to go and build the bridges soon. I might do the next live stream, which will be tomorrow night, on this map instead, and I might go and build some bridges. So, but anyway, I cut across like that little rock bridge going across the river, looped around the back so I'm facing the right way for this pipe, which yeah, grabbing now, probably not the best option to try and grab it from the bridge, but there's a little bit of distance to it, so I think if I parked on either side of the bridge, I'm not sure if I'd have enough length in the crane to actually reach it. And yeah, it was kind of where I realised now, like, oh yeah, it's this large pipe, which again, I've seen them before, I've delivered them and all sorts, so I don't know why I had in my head that it was a 2-slot, but I just suddenly realised, like, oh, gonna have to remove the loaf. It's not a problem though, we can always winch him along behind. But I'm professional. So, I was actually pretty gentle rather than just dropping the large pipes on the floor. I did actually lower them down. It's one of the few times I've actually behaved rationally on this game. Makes a change. For whatever reason there wasn't enough length. It's definitely not what she said. Yeah, I had to lower the crane just for it to even offer me the option to pick the pipes up again. I've noticed though, I'm not 100% on how you get it to do the menu, but when you go into the crane mode now, there is a way that you can scroll around and select your winch point for the crane, which is cool because, yeah, I was mentioning that for quite a while. It can be a bit of a pain in the arse when you got to try and move your crane further over just to get the or the crane point to jump over. So I'm pretty glad they've sorted that now. And yeah, like I said, it was a good job I brought the 4 slot. Otherwise, right now I'd be yeah, heading back to the base, scrapping all this footage, and coming back with a 4 slot anyway. And the loaf definitely comes in handy for later on this. Well, obviously when I get to the end of this mission, I could just stop there if I want, but I've got the trailer, and to a degree, just because I kind of like to do it at the minute, I'll take the trailer back to the garage, and yeah, again, this sort of mission and everything was just an excuse to go and drive this thing around and test it out, really. And like I said, that's the overall conclusion I've came to, that it certainly isn't the best or anything like that. I was being a bit iffy there, apologies, a little glitch, but it was being a bit iffy with the power again. I think I had to kind of blip the throttle to get it going enough. And yeah, so I mean, it's not a terrible truck. It's not something I'll never drive. Obviously, I'm using them a little bit at the minute because they're newer trucks. The bore, again, I don't dislike it, but I can't really see a hell of a lot of use for that because I think it's quite a big, hefty, chunky thing, and I'd probably rather just take the P16 in that case. Even though that hasn't got all-wheel drive, it still handles itself pretty well. So there's the factory or whatever, where I think you get, or can take metal rolls and turn them into beams, or vice versa. That's where the paste are, where you get that from. But yeah, you see in situations like that, when you bang it into high range, as long as it's not too boggy, this thing does alright. But that's why I might end up putting the fine-tuned gearbox in this, because then I'll have the sort of high-low and everything. And yeah, as soon as you do get to sections like this, it's just, you may as well drop it down, because it'll wheel spin quite a bit without the diffs on. And like I said, it's nailing through its fuel fairly quickly in that time, so sometimes you're best to just suck it up, stick it in low range with the diffs on, and yeah, go for a nice, smooth, slow crawl. Gonna have a little toot at the horn again. See me little loaf spying around, let me know he's still there. But like I said, I quite like the look of this truck as well. I think it looks pretty cool. I've taken my front bumpers off at the minute. But yeah, I quite like the sort of old school American looking truck with the nose. Like I said, we get a lot of cab overs over here. And yeah, this is the last little run up the hill. At least that ramped flatbed hasn't actually tipped on me. I think because this thing sits quite tall for what it is, the hitch is raised like above the level of the flatbed, which I think helps a bit for it not tipping. Overall, I'm not too keen on this trailer. I'd certainly prefer if there was like a sideboard version of this, even if it had the ramps on the back. If it just had like the sideboards kind of running around each side and the front of it, at least then if it does tip and your cargo disconnects, it has a chance of actually staying on the trailer. And yeah, this is it, mission done. Again, I think with the money, it's not too bad. They definitely pay out a lot better on these later DLCs. Replaying my second playthrough, it's pretty mad how little money it gives you on a lot of the missions at the start. So it's about 8 grand odd. Again, with the XP is not bad, but I think nearly everybody that's playing on these levels now are just way beyond needing any XP. It's a shame they didn't add like another 10 or 20 levels or something, even if there wasn't a whole lot of new stuff to unlock. It'd sort of just be nice that the XP is actually doing something rather than nothing. I've earned ridiculous amounts of XP. I was already on level 30, I believe, when I started doing the tyre testing on that cargo container contest on Drowned Lands, and I ended up doing 250 runs on that, so I've probably leveled up to level 30 like 2 or 3 times over. Yeah, the loaf flew off because the trailer, again, it sort of treats it like cargo, so it auto-unpacked it. But loaf's no hassle, stuck a winch on him, he seemed to span himself around, jumped to his wheels, and we're good to go. And again, I was going for a little drive now. I ended up going to the warehouse. I wanted to see what, like, what's there, is there any cargo there, what can I do there. I didn't learn a whole lot, but I believe you might have to take metal beams there and turn them into metal rolls, and I can make metal beams at my cargo creation zone 1 in Black Badger Lake. So theoretically, even though it's a little bit of a faffing around, I can kind of got unlimited metal rolls, which is good because I've seen it one in them in some of the missions. Yeah, I mean, again, you'll see now I'm nearly out of fuel. I was trying to race to this garage or warehouse or whatever before I ran out of fuel. A little bit wide on the corner, but you'll see there, understeered. And again, because there's no power going through the front wheels, like, they're not actually biting in and kind of helping pull your nose around. It's just everything's pushing from the back. So yeah, I understeered. But you see, this is unedited loaf porn. This is just shows you why you need to get yourself a loaf. He's goddamn professional, straight into action. I've got a nice little hill here, which worked pretty nicely. Plan B, I could always wedge myself behind one of those tree stumps, but because there is a nice little hill, floored the accelerator for a second first, dug some little loaf holes, and again, this is why the loaf works very nicely, because he's got the smallest tyres in the game. It sits low. I was able to kind of, yeah, it digs in and hooks the tyres into the ground pretty easily, so that's one of them where if somebody makes a modded loaf, having bigger tyres on it may actually hurt it being able to do that. It'd be quite cool having some different tyre options, like maybe the same size tyres, but the like the quasi custom muds or whatever. And yeah, maybe some more engine power and stuff, but like I said, just everything about the loaf seems to work with what I need it to do. Again, it just understeered like crazy, and I flew into that tree. So I'm just going to start heading back to the garage now to drop this trailer off. I've already refueled the P512 now with the loaf, with the roof rack. And yeah, like I say, again, it was just a bit of gameplay of this truck, as it's a pretty new one, and see how it handles everything. Overall, with that mission, it did pretty well, kind of what I expected. I mean, yeah. Some trucks in this game, if they haven't got all-wheel drive, it's a bit of a disaster. That GMC 9500 didn't really have enough weight and everything to it to generate enough of its own weight to like get grip, at least on the rear axles. This thing, yeah, it's just a bit of a bigger, heftier, chunkier truck, so it just about gets away with it. And I mean, again, at the extreme end of the scale is the P16, which is really heavy, and that manufactures its own grip pretty bloody well because it's so heavy at the back as well. It plants those the massive P16 tyres in the ground, and yeah, it does pretty well even without all-wheel drive. This is kind of half and half, so like I said, it sort of ends up like a bit of a hard mode. I mean, climbing up onto these rock ledges now, I had to put the steering straight for it to have enough grip and everything to bump the front end up, but then that made me like overshoot the rock and go back into the deep end. So that's why I did a little edit there, because I was actually messing around. I ended up doing like a 19-point turn. Like I said, I had to stay straight to get up the rock, and then I had to keep trying to reverse and scoot the front end round, which, because there's no power going to the front wheels, it's not scooting it round too easily. I assume now I've drove on some kind of rock as well, which nearly held it up. And yeah, all the time like this slowness is going on. Obviously the fuel is ticking away, and like I said, if I had a Dolphin now, same size fuel tank, pretty much I'd say the same fuel usage, but I'd probably might even be able to squeeze it into high range going over there with a Dolphin. But if not, I'd still be in auto and it'd be ploughing along there with no real issues. Again, another rock holding me up, but it did actually make its way over there, so... And that's what I've found for the most part. Everywhere I've drove so far in this truck, I have made it. It's just been a little bit iffy, a little bit close in some sections. I think when I was using it the other day doing the log deliveries and that, I might have actually used the winch once or twice. But then the bore did struggle as bad, if not worse anyway, in the same area, so that area just seemed particularly trollish. And yeah, like I said, from what I've drove with the bore so far, it's just a bit... It's definitely got a massive nose on it in the engine and everything, and even though it's got decently sized wheels, I think they're 58 inch or something, there's a lot of nose sticking out over the front for how small the wheels are, really. And I think, what's this got? 51-inch wheels. It's not too bad, big enough to climb over most things. Again, I think that's about the same size as the Dolphin tyres. It's more when you're going into like the mid-40s tyres, they feel a bit small on some trucks. I'm sure the step toe that's got 46, 47s or something, they start feeling a little bit small. And I think there's a little glitch now. I must have reversed at some point, so good thing is it's not really tipping there, even though I've got a little bit of a lean going on. And yeah, that was where it glitched. I must have reversed, and basically I've got stuck on a stone. That rear axle on like the left side, the side we're looking at, there's a rock there it's wedged up against, which after plenty of reversing and kind of ramming up to it, I managed to bump on top of it, but I was still stuck. What I kept doing in the end that seemed to work pretty well was keep blipping the throttle, and it eventually just spat the stone out, and then every time I blipped the throttle it kind of jiggled the stone a little bit instead of just keeping it floored. And it yeah, actually was slowly jiggling the rock back, and then it spat it out the back, and yeah, we were able to get going again. But that's what I mean, an all-wheel drive truck would just clearly be more comfortable and capable here. Quite nice though as well, a bit like the Paystar, how easily it is able to go into high range. So I'm getting flooring it a bit, because again, I'm aware that the fuel is ticking away. And I've already used the roof rack on the Lo4f. And this is partly the reason why I sort of left this footage, and in the end I wasn't sure whether to cut it after I finished the mission, but like I said, it's a bit of gameplay of this new truck, what it's up to. Again, the trailer's just too easy to let go of stuff. It dropped the Lo4f off, but he'll be fine. Yeah, here, look, I think it just died again in the power, or it might be just coming up. It's certainly struggling at the minute though, even though I've gone down to low range diffs on. There you go, the tyres are just locked up. Fortunately there's plenty of trees around, so I stuck the winch on and I kept it pinned the whole time. And once the winch started pulling me forward, it just kind of reintroduced some power to the rears, and we started climbing a bit. But again, locked up again. So at that point, I just span the Lo4f around, got a winch on that, and we're off. And like I said, even though this is pretty slow, I certainly won't be going out in this a hell of a lot. And it limits itself anyway with a 200 litre fuel tank. I'm surprised really they didn't give it more like a 350 litre fuel tank, considering it's yeah, not got the all-wheel drive, so they kind of know it's going to spend a lot of its life in the low ranges. And I'm pretty sure with that fine-tuned gearbox, I'm sure that says something about that's not good for your fuel consumption, so that'll drink it even quicker. But again, I mean, that's why get yourself a goddamn horse of a vehicle, bring one of them along with you, and at least it's a spare near enough 200 litres of fuel. And see, that's what I mean, because it's got quite a nice, like the size of the truck, the way they've balanced it with the weight, the sponginess of the suspension, it was quite nice to just drive around and watch it kind of slowly lumber its way through the woods and everything. That's why I just kind of zoned out now with the camera watching it. And yeah, like I said, the Arduing is a pretty good looking truck. Probably with a big crane on the back helping a little bit as well, because it's planting a lot of weight on those rear wheels, which is kind of where you need it really. But just because it's got quite a long wheelbase, that's where shorter wheelbase stuff probably doesn't suffer as much from not having all-wheel drive, because the front axles are quite close as far as turning. But because this has got quite a long wheelbase, it's yeah, as you do go to turn, like I said, you do get understeer quite a bit. Anyway, yeah, I ran out of fuel, so fortunately though, I had about 56 litres left in the Lo4f, I believe, because I'd end up winching it for some of this mission. It had been using a bit of its fuel, so I gave it 56 litres. The Lo4f is now out of fuel, that's why I'm winching it behind me. And again, can we make it back to the garage with the fuel provided by the Lo4f? I mean, you can already see I would have got this mission complete, but there's no way I would have got this trailer back to the yard, so I would have had to just abandon that in the middle of nowhere. At some point in this mission, you would have seen my fuel trailer that I abandoned the other day. that was kind of nearish to where we picked the large pipes up. There's the floating telegraph pole again. Here's the garage in the distance, and thankfully, I mean, look at him, goddamn professional. You need to quickly switch his way to the other side of that post. And yeah, just about we had enough fuel to make it home. I quite like this paint scheme as well I put on this truck. There's quite a few nice paint schemes for this. There's a yellow and red one as well. The blue and white one looks pretty nice. The green and white one I think is not too bad either. Again, I'll do a review on this truck pretty soon. Sell the trailer back. Whip me loaf around. I could have just recovered at this point, but just out of principle. Just to show myself that the loaf did in fact provide us with everything we need. Still got repair points as well. I could have fixed the P512 up to brand newy. And there we go, recovered, job done. And yeah, I mean overall, like I said, it's one of them. It certainly isn't the best truck or anything like that, but there is something about it I kind of like. It is a little bit of a more difficult truck to drive, but it just feels quite nice when you're driving it. Yeah, so that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, get yourself a loaf, and I'll be back soon.